Chapter 28. One by one, the travellers came out again onto the top of the Peach and gazed carefully around. The moon was still shining as brightly as ever, and there were still plenty of huge, shimmering cloud mountains on all sides. But there were no cloudmen in sight now. "The Peach is leaking," shouted the old green grasshopper, peering over the side. "It's full of holes, and the juice is dripping out everywhere." "Well, that does it," cried the earthworm. "If the Peach is leaking, then we'll surely sink." "Don't be an ass," the centipede told him. "We're not on the water now." "Oh, look," shouted the ladybird. "Look, look, look, over there." Everybody swung round to look. In the distance, directly ahead of them, they saw the most extraordinary sight. It was a kind of arch, a colossal curvy-shaped thing that reached high up into the sky and came down again at both sides. The ends were resting upon a huge flat cloud that was as big as a desert. "Now what on earth is that?" asked James. "It's a bridge. It's an enormous hoop cut in half. It's a giant horseshoe standing upside down." "Stop me if I'm wrong," murmured the centipede, going white in the face. "But might those not be cloudmen climbing all over it?" There was a dreadful silence. The Peach floated closer and closer. "They are cloudmen. There's hundreds of them, thousands, millions." I don't want to hear about it," shrieked the poor earthworm. "I'd rather be on the end of a fish hook and used as bait to come up against those terrible creatures again." "I'd rather be fried alive and eaten by a Mexican," wailed the old green grasshopper. "Please keep quiet," whispered James. "It's our only hope." They crouched very still on top of the Peach, staring at the cloudmen. The whole surface of the cloud was literally swarming with them, and there were hundreds more above, climbing about on the monstrous crazy arch. "But what is that thing?" whispered the ladybird. "And what are they doing to it?" "I don't care what they're doing to it," the centipede said, scuttling over to the tunnel entrance. "I'm not staying up here. Goodbye." But the rest of them were too frightened or too hypnotized by the whole affair to make a move. "Do you know what?" James whispered. "What?" they said. "What?" "That's an enormous arch. They seem to be painting it. They've got lots of paint and big brushes. You look!" And he was quite right. The travellers were close enough to see that this was exactly what the cloudmen were doing. They all had huge brushes in their hands, and they were splashing the paint on the great curvy arch in a frenzy of speed, so fast in fact that in a few minutes the whole arch became covered in the most glorious colours, reds, blues, greens, yellows and purples. "It's a rainbow!" everyone said at once. "They're making a rainbow!" "Oh, isn't it beautiful? Oh, just look at those colours!" "Centipede," they shouted, "you must come up and see this." They were so enthralled by the beauty and brilliance of the rainbow that they forgot to keep their voices low any longer. The centipede poked his head cautiously out of the tunnel entrance. Well, he said. "I've always wondered how those things were made. Why all the ropes? What are they doing with those ropes?" "Good heavens, they're pushing it off the cloud. There it goes. They're lowering it down to the earth with ropes." "And I'll tell you something else," the centipede said sharply. "If I'm not mistaken, we ourselves are going to bump right into it." "Bless my soul, he's right," the old green grasshopper exclaimed. The rainbow was now dangling in the air below the cloud. The Peach was also just below the level of the cloud and was heading directly towards the rainbow, travelling rather fast. "We're lost," Miss Spider cried, wringing her feet again. "The end has come." "I can't stand it," wailed the earthworm. "Tell me what's happening." We're going to miss it," shouted the ladybird. "No, we're not." "Yes, we are." Yes, no. Oh, my heavens." "Hold on, everybody," James called out, and suddenly there was a tremendous thud, and the Peach went crashing into the top of the rainbow. This was followed by an awful splintering noise, as the enormous rainbow snapped right across the middle and became two separate pieces. The next thing that happened was extremely unfortunate. The ropes that the cloudmen had been using for lowering the rainbow got tangled up with the silk strings that went up from the Peach to the seagulls. The Peach was trapped. Panic and pandemonium broke out among the travellers, and James Henry Trotter, glancing up at the sky, saw faces of 1,000 furious cloudmen peering down at him over the edge of the cloud. The faces had almost no shape at all because of the long white hairs that covered them. There were no noses, no mouths, no ears, no chins, Only the eyes were visible in each face, 2 small black eyes glinting malevolently through the hairs. Then came the most frightening thing of all. One cloud man, a huge hairy creature who must have been 14 feet tall at least, suddenly stood up and made a tremendous leap off the side of the cloud, and trying to get one of the silk strings above the peach, James and his friend saw him go flying through the air above them, his arms outstretched in front of him, reaching for the nearest string, and they saw him grab and cling to it, and with his hands and legs, and then, very, very slowly, hand over hand, he began to climb down the string. "Mercy, help, save us!" cried the ladybird. "He's coming down to eat us," wailed the old green grasshopper. "Jump overboard!" "Eat the earthworm first," shouted the centipede. "It's no good eating me, I'm full of bones, like a kipper." "Centipede," yelled James, "quickly, bite through that string. He's the only one he's coming down on." The centipede rushed over to the stem of the peach and took the string in his teeth and bit through it with one snap of his jaws. Immediately, far above them, a single seagull was seen to come flying away from the rest of the flock and go flying off with a long string trailing from its neck, and clinging desperately to the end of the string, shouting and cursing with fury, was a huge hairy cloud man. Up and up he went, swinging across the moonlit sky, and James Henry Trotter, watching him with delight, said, "My goodness, he must weigh almost nothing for one seagull to be able to pull him up like that. He must be all hair and air." The rest of the cloudmen were so flabbergasted at seeing one of their company carried away in this manner that they let go of the ropes they were holding. And then, of course, down went the rainbow, both halves of it together tumbling towards the earth before. This freed the peach, which at once began sailing away from that terrible cloud. But the travellers were not clear yet. The infuriated cloudmen jumped up and down, ran after them along the cloud, pelting them mercilessly with all sorts of hard and horrible objects. Empty paint buckets, paintbrushes, step-ladders, stools, saucepans, frying pans, rotten eggs, dead rats, bottles of hair oil, anything those brutes could lay their hands on came raining down upon the peach. One cloudman, taking very careful aim, tipped a gallon of thick purple paint over the edge of the cloud right onto the centipede himself. The centipede screamed in anger. "My legs!" he cried. "They're all sticking together. I can't walk, and my eyelids won't open. I can't see, and my boots are ruined." But for that moment, everyone was far too busy dodging the things that the cloudmen were throwing to pay any attention to the centipede. "The paint is drying," he moaned. "It's going hard. I can't move my legs. I can't move anything." "But you can still move your mouth," said the earthworm, "and that's a great pity." "James," bawled the centipede, "please help me. Wash off this paint. Scrape it off. Anything."